All right, so in the last couple of videos, we were taking a look at using bend markers and some tips to kind of refine and optimize the phase between your transients and your samples that you're using, and just a way to get it all working nicely. Now, I did mention that one of the benefits of using Studio One's bend markers is that it does a really good job at maintaining relative velocity between all the hits. This can give you an extremely natural sounding end result when you find a sample that works well with what you have. And when you properly align them, which I like to do by rendering it to audio and then skipping through while really zoomed in and just making sure that I align them, and I'm also making sure that the phase is optimized and everything, that you get a great result. There is another topic that I wanted to take a look at, and let's start this from scratch. So in this case, we have our kick drum. Okay, and then we have our sample replacement that we did, which we rendered out and everything, and everything is great. Let's actually turn this all the way down. Let's bring this out for a moment. I have the same instrument track with the exact same kick over here. What I want to do is focus on another way that we can do this, which is a little bit more real time. Let's say that you don't want to do any transient detection, and let's say that you don't want to, take the time to do everything that I did. There's a really easy shortcut, and it happens to work very well in electronic and EDM type genres, where the velocity of your kick isn't as important in other genres like funk or rock or hip hop or anything where you really need to have those relative velocities. And if you're doing sample layering or sample replacement, you need those to follow. I'm going to select the bass drum mic over here, and I'm going to pull up the gate plugin. So let's pull up gate, and notice over here that I'm just going to go with whatever the default preset is. Let's go locate selection to move to the top. Let's have a listen. Notice that just like right off the bat, this is doing a pretty good job with everything in terms of how it's reacting. It looks pretty accurate. Take a look at this feature over here, which is trigger. I'm going to send trigger notes. Let's activate that. Also take a look at this. We can choose the exact note. If we temporarily go back to our funky drum kit, we know that this pad is on C1. So let's go back to our gate plugin and let's change it from C3 to C1. Okay, so now notice that every time that the kick is hitting, that it's sending a trigger out. And we can also choose the velocity that it sends. So this is nice. Let's up this to 115, for example. This is the only downfall with this method, is that you have a fixed velocity. But let's take a look at this method anyways, because I think it's really good for EDM style things. Now, the next step I want to do is I'm going to come to my funky kit, and on the inputs over here, if you're not seeing these, you have to increase the actual track header height. And then from all inputs, I want to change this to gate. Now, let's go back to the virtual instrument, okay? And let's press play. So you say to yourself, okay, nothing's happening. I set that up. Okay. Well, that's because we actually have to record enable this. Now take a look at what happens when we record enable this track, and we're playing the two of these together. I'm going to open up my gate. We are getting a MIDI trigger that is being sent out. It's being sent out at C1, and it's being sent out at a velocity, a fixed velocity of 115. So how do we get this to actually be usable? Well, in terms of dialing things in, and if we wanted to leave it real time, at some point you need to record it. But if we just wanted to get things kind of going and get things started, we could start making some adjustments right over here. If I wanted to add a little bit of gain, or if I wanted to add any filter cutoffs or anything like that, maybe I wanted to transpose this. Let's transpose it down. Maybe even go lower. Let's see. Let's split the difference. Let's go to -6. Okay. Let's say that I'm happy with that, and that's what I wanted to use. Once you kind of have something dialed in, at this point, we can actually just record this. So let me just engage record. We'll let these two play together. Notice that it's creating a MIDI trigger at a fixed velocity, and it's creating the MIDI trigger based upon the note that we identified and the velocity that we identified. Let's let this run a little bit longer. We'll let it run to pretty much, I don't know, maybe somewhere around here. Okay. Now, it's not perfect, and you still have to double check your work, but check this out. Here's what I can tell you. If you had anything that was like a basic 4 on the floor EDM kick, I have a situation right now where I'm mixing a track, and I said to the artist, hey, the kick that you have running all the way across, it is perfect in the verses, but in the choruses, They basically have that main kick and they have another kick that's layered in. And I said, I think that you need to go for a completely different kick in the choruses altogether. And then maybe we'll see if we still need to layer that other one in. But I think if you replace the kick altogether, something that punches through, it's going to be perfect. Because he asked me, is there anything that you hear in the production that could be fixed? Now, I already have audio of a kick drum. So technically speaking, I could just pull up the gate plugin, just like I've done here, leave it in its default state, send an actual note trigger out, and then pull up a virtual instrument, and then just record that in real time. And I can fine tune the virtual instrument while it's playing, but as soon as it's actually recorded, and it's recorded in as an instrument part, then I can immediately turn that to audio and do anything that I need to. Now here's the thing with this method. Let's take a look. We know that there's no, the gate, the parameters of the gate is what is setting up the actual trigger detection. But let's take a look at this detection. I'm going to park my cursor in the actual instrument event. I've got the track selected and I'm just parking it here. And I'm going to zoom in super tight. And let's now use the tab key. And let's take a look to see how accurate these trigger detection points are. Not bad, right? This one's a little bit off. Not sure why that's the case, but that's okay. We can just either move that, edit it, or make a note. But let's see how the rest of them look. Pretty bang on in terms of like, there's a zero crossing point and they're very accurate. Now, the thing here, like I said, it has nothing to do with bend markers. It has to do with the actual parameters that you've set up in your gate. That is how the MIDI triggers are being detected. And based on threshold and everything, and based on where the gate is opening and closing and the settings that you have. So this is doing a great job. There's a couple of them that need to be adjusted, but that's not a big deal. This is in really good shape to be able to use this as a starting point. Now, once you have your MIDI triggers that you've recorded in real time, it's no different than the last time we did it. I could simply click, hold, and drag, and this would now render to audio. And if I really did want to do like a bend marker detection, I could detect these transients, and then once I'm happy with that, we'll do this, we'll analyze these. So I have these transient detection points. It's the exact same thing, right? I can now split up bend markers, and then I can edit or adjust each one of these individually. And like I say, my main thing that I always like to do is I will shift, double click. I'm going to move everything over a little bit, and then I will pull everything back a little bit. And then I would go through one by one, and I would just make sure everything's aligned, and I would use my slip mode to make sure that it's perfectly aligned, and I would check my phase and everything like that. Now, the other thing is we're doing this now with a kick drum in terms of we're generating a new sample of something that we could layer in. Sometimes you want to layer in a sub. So in the case that I would want to do a sub, it would be pretty much just a matter of finding a virtual instrument. PreSonus, I tend to use MIDI. I have a MH preset for like a sub-bass sine wave clean. It's going to be the same thing. I could just drag this in place, and then I'd need to find something. I'd need to find the actual pitch of what I want to trigger. And then once I know the pitch, this one over here, for example, is, let's hover C4. What's C3? So let's use C3 in this example. I'm going to now change the inputs to the gate. This one, we will mute this temporarily. This one I will activate, and then now on the actual bass drum gate, I'm going to change this from C1 over to C3, which is what we started out with. And now I'm going to be generating a sub bass. Now, I would need to refine this. I could refine this by rendering to audio and then adjusting the envelopes, or I could refine this by tweaking the gate and getting everything to sit exactly as I need it to, and then tuck that in, and then make sure that I'm hitting the right pitch. It might not be the right pitch, C3. I might need to go lower. A fundamental that makes sense of the key of the song, and then I'm just giving like a pillowy sub layer to my kick drum that could potentially be in key with the song. But this is all happening just by the stock Studio One gate. Fixed velocity, but we do have the ability to choose a trigger, a little bit of tweaking, but even in its default state, really, really great option for if you don't want to mess around or you're not confident in creating bend markers and doing the stuff that I did. Set this up, let it happen in real time. If you do hear an issue where it created a MIDI trigger where it doesn't need to, it's so easy to go double click your instrument part and go into the editor and remove that. And then take a look at them, just like I said, just by the way I'm doing it here, just by clicking the tab key and zooming in super close, we can see which ones need to be edited, which ones need to be adjusted. Anyways, really quick tip I wanted to share with you. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.